Islamic finance gets more and more attention worldwide. I mean, we know that it's a quite young discipline, developed in the Middle East area and highly developed in Malaysia. And due to the Arabic Spring, we can also see that it's getting more and more attention on the North African countries, starting from Morocco, where Islamic finance was not allowed. Now the required regulations are in, or is getting put in place. We see Tunisia and then Egypt with the political direction into more modern Islamic parties and bringing back Islamic finance. Yeah, as mentioned, to have this discussion today with you in terms of an introduction presentation and furthermore on the certain panels to see how Islamic finance is linked to that kind of fund structures available here. And yeah, I think we should just start about the markets. Don't be afraid if I throw out a lot of figures. I try to keep them quite concentrated, but at least giving you an overview what the Islamic fund market is all about. You will see it's not a very big portion compared to the rest conventional financial parts and assets, but at least you get quite good feeling on it. If we just recap, I mean, a lot of you might know what are the actual principles on Islamic finance. Just concentrate not on the all principles and writing them down, but rather than concentrate on Islamic funds, what is important in terms of principles for funds. The underlying assets must be Sharia compliant, hence certain assets and investments into industries are not allowed. I mean, you know all that, even financial services areas or based on interest is not allowed. Certain areas in terms of weapons and everything which belongs to pork, alcohol, red light district is not allowed to invest in. Certain components like interest, gambling and uncertainty is not allowed in funds. That must be strictly avoided. Interest in terms of payments, of returns, everything is based on returns in terms of yields in a joint venture. Gambling characteristics must be excluded. And uncertainty, which means uncertainty in the main nature of the business. Everything must be clear, must be agreed on, in best case in terms of clear contracts and regulations. Qualitative aspects are also quite important when funds and Islamic products are set up. This is a part where not everyone really knows about or is already always skipped. Ethical aspects must be considered to avoid any violation against nature, natural resources. In Islam, a human being has to take care about that points and not be too excess with these kind of sources. And of course, violence against human rights, if people invest in equities of companies that are actually not treating staff or having children in place for doing that kind of work somewhere in Far East Asia, even that is for an investment manager a point to look at and to choose or pick investments. Legal opinions, that's something which is specific for Islamic finance. Each product or fund must have some of a kind legal opinion on it from a Sharia scholar, which is an independent part, should be an independent part. If we look into the global market of Islamic finance, we speak about 1.1 billion US dollars at the end of 2010. The surveys and the benchmarks and the figures for 2011 are just collected now, so we're waiting for them to be collected. But let's look on the ratios. We have seen that there are 40% growth in assets, and if we have a look on the 5 years perspective, we have seen that Islamic finance even rose 150%. The largest centers worldwide are actually well known, Malaysia, Middle East. We have, of course, Iran and other GCC countries. What we have seen as well is that certain offshore markets for certain products like Bahamas, who is quite known for funds on aviation funds. We have, of course, new markets like South Africa, Brazil and Australia, where the whole meat industry are financed on an Islamic finance way. So the markets list is growing and growing actually. Compared to this, we see a total Islamic assets worldwide of 1 or 2% from the total Now let's say it that way, that from the total assets conventionally and Islamic finance or invested in Islamic finance, we have only 1 or 2% portion out of it, which is actually quite small portion if we compare that to the whole market. Although the population of Muslims is actually 1/5 of the whole world population. The markets, especially, it's not now only focused on general Islamic finance, but especially for Islamic finance funds. We have seen, due to surveys and reports, that for 2010 we had a rise by 8%. 58 billion US dollar have been invested into compliant funds. The size, again, on a 5 years perspective, in general we have seen a growth of 150%. In the specific sector of Islamic funds, we have seen it doubled in size since 2004. And as already mentioned, within the whole assets, Islamic finance is only 1 or 2% within it. And even within that small nucleus Islamic finance, Islamic funds represent only 5.6%. Nevertheless, what we've seen more and more, that Islamic finance is not anymore seen separately. In general, Islamic finance is some of a kind ethical financing, and it can be categorized and grouped into this area. And we see, especially into that similarity areas where we have ethical finance in renewable energies or any kind of other ethical finance, which also globally is growing. The average annual growth in that fund area is 10 to 20%, 15 to 20%. And we've seen that beside the original markets, we also see a lot of European centers like Luxembourg, which is the 5th largest Islamic fund domicile worldwide, Ireland, and of course the lovely place we were sitting today, Malta.